Well, welcome everybody. My name is Chris Lee. I'm with ChannelBytes. Today, we are hosting again IT Trendsetters by SynerComm. We are have a few guests, Lisa Niles. Lisa, it's been a while since we last spoke, but Lisa is with SynerComm, and Peter Bruzzese. Did I pronounce that correctly, Peter?
You're close. You're close. J. Peter Bruzzese. Bruzzese. So if you
Bruzzese.
punch me, I bruise easy. That's
Ah,
that's the easiest way to do it.
okay. Well, before we get started, before we get into the weeds here, Lisa, why don't you give the audience here a little bit of your background?
Thanks, Chris. Absolutely. My name is Lisa Niles. I'm with SynerComm. I am our Chief Solution Architect. My main position here at SynerComm is to engage with customers and help find options for them for various pain points on their network or security. And have been working here for 25 years, so we've seen a lot and worked with a lot of different customers.
Cool. Well, Lisa, last time we spoke, you were riding your Harley around Wisconsin. What do you do in the winter?
Not the Harley. It turns more into a snowmobile.
Sweet. Peter, first off, it's an honor to be speaking to a person. When you Google your name, people actually are paying for your name to serve up ads. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
That's kind of funny. Well, so my name is J. Peter Bruzzese. I am an 8-time awarded Microsoft MVP for Exchange Server and for Office 365. For those who don't know what that is, it's an award that Microsoft gives to individuals who participate in various communities, various technical buckets. And so mine happens to be Exchange Server, and then over time it moved into Office 365. So email for the most part. I'm also a journalist. I've been writing for over 20 years. I've written over a dozen books that are sold online, Amazon.com and such. And last but not least, I am an evangelist for Mimecast because of their security, archiving, and continuity solutions that revolve around email.
Very cool. So what does it mean to be a Microsoft MVP? That is granted to you by Microsoft?
Right. So you can't work for Microsoft and be an MVP. It's for individuals who work for other companies, do other things. Like in my case, I co-founded a company called Clip Training, and it's a provider of Windows, Office, and Office 365 training videos and such that revolve around Office 365. And so between my speaking, my writing, the work that I do with Clip Training, all of these things come together, and Microsoft takes note of those things. And ultimately, if you're considered someone who contributes to the community, they give you this as an award. So you can't test for it, you can't apply for it. It's an award that's given annually. And so I'm working on my 9th award. I'm trying to get the award for the 9th time through my current community contributions. But it's not an automatic that you get it every year. If you're an MVP last year, it doesn't mean you're automatic for this year. You have to keep doing things for the community.
Very cool. Well, congrats on that, and congrats for making somebody else money for having your name. All right. Well, so let me get some things out of the, let's get some nomenclature settled here. So I was looking back, and did Microsoft change the terminology from O365 to M365, or what is the terminology we should be using in today's conversation?
They did. And so it's been a slow change in terms of people catching on. It's still okay to say Office 365. Everybody knows what you mean, but it's Microsoft 365 or M365. That's kind of what they want you to go with now. And you'll see that when you log into the admin center, it's no longer the Office 365 admin center. It's the Microsoft 365 admin center.
Okay, cool. Well, let's get right into this. So today we're talking about continuity with M365 or Microsoft 365, as well as ensuring that email is up during some outages. So Lisa, let's start with you. Let's get your perspective from the customer angle. What are you hearing and what are you experiencing out there?
Thanks, Chris. Yes, we have a lot of feedback from customers. Initially, people were hesitant to go out to Office 365, and they gave up control of their server, but they knew that they were also kind of in a gray area as far as redundancy and backup, and weren't clear on how that was all going to work. Now that the majority of our customers have moved there, they're kind of realizing that they're kind of in a standstill mode, kind of waiting to see when there's an outage, when it comes back. there's even websites to say Microsoft outage and to, basically tell you when or what might have happened or when they're coming back. And so a lot of our enterprise customers are looking for better options. What can we do about this? How can I maintain 100% uptime? Email is mission critical for most businesses today, and are just looking for some options. And that's when we got engaged with Mimecast and was able to resolve some of these issues for customers going forward.
Okay. Well, Peter, what are your thoughts on these various outages, and how do you see these should be addressed?
Well, to be honest with you, every cloud service has an outage from time to time. I mean, Microsoft, Google, Apple, they all have their stores have gone down. There have been issues. Microsoft, their Office 365 or M365 solution tends to go down in whole, in part, and in pieces. And what I mean by that is there are times when we've seen there have been outages as a result of identity management issues. Azure AD has a problem, or Azure DNS has a problem. We had that happen in the EU. And when that happens, people can't access any of the services. So that's when it goes down in whole. In fact, in Texas, we had a data center a couple of years back. It got hit by lightning. It took out the air conditioning system, which basically took out the Azure AD servers, the identity management, and then ultimately people for a period of either 4, 8, or hours or more, they could not access any of the services. Other times it goes down in parts. So you can send email is fine, but Teams is down. Sometimes it goes down in pieces. So for example, we had an outage that took out multi-factor authentication. It's this one little piece, but as a result of that, those that were using multi-factor authentication could not access their email or any of the services. And so that's when you need to have a break the glass account so you can flip it off until they fix it, and then you can flip it back on. So we see these outages, they're real, whole parts and pieces. The question is, what do you do? I mean, when there's an outage, do you just sit there and go, oh, well, I guess I can't get any work done? Typically, people keep working somehow. And typically what they do is they move over to shadow IT solutions, which now becomes a problem, especially with regard to email.
So Lisa, let's talk a little bit about when a customer calls you and says that there's an outage. What is happening in their organization, or at least what are they telling you is happening during that time? You guys deal with a lot of very large organizations, so I assume the waterfall effect is big.
Absolutely. As Peter had mentioned, what happens is that shadow IT. And all of a sudden, somebody, let's say you're a banker in finance or a hospital, and you're like, I got to get this email out. Well, geez, I got a Gmail account. And they'll defer to what they have. So if my security policies or my firewall is going to allow that out, now all of a sudden I'm sending emails. And maybe an email by itself might be benign, but what if that email's got patient information or charge card information or just anything that could be crucial to the business, not only from a security standpoint, but from regulatory or from a fine? How do I get my arms around that? And you can't stop the business. You need productivity. You can't give an answer to the the C-level folks as to when you're going to be back, and they're asking, why is this happening? We never used to run into this. How come you can't get us back online?
So regarding security, Peter, this is a question for you. You mentioned you're a global security advisor. What advice do you typically give organizations?
Well, with regard to security, one of the challenges that I face is that while I'm a huge loyalist to Microsoft and to Office 365 or M365, in fact, I've participated in some of the largest migrations to M365. I find that from a security perspective, I lean towards a defense in depth approach. I believe in layering on solutions that are going to give me a better chance to secure my environment, especially in the dangerous world we live in today. So while Microsoft has their solutions that are built in, I prefer to encourage folks to look at a bolt-on. And the value there is that it kind of expands your umbrella so that when there is an outage, if you can have a solution like Mimecast, for example, that now is outside of that outage umbrella, right? You've expanded it. If they can also provide the ability for you to continue to send and receive email, not only are you still working, but you're now still working in a secure environment because the bubble is bigger. That's what Mimecast can do. They not only give you better security, but then they provide a continuity solution that allows you to keep working when there's an outage. Now, it doesn't fix every problem. I mean, you're still out of SharePoint, or Teams could be down, or other things, but at least with mission critical email, you're still able to continue to work to send that document and do it in a secure bubble. And the other thing is, if you're using Mimecast for compliance or archive, then you're able to continue to be compliant and under the regulatory statutes that whatever country you're in might stipulate. So to me, I think this is valuable to continue to look at expanding the bubble instead of keeping everything with what's built in.
So Lisa, let's talk about Mimecast specifically. How are you guys utilizing it? Where do you guys see the fit and opportunity? What problems are they solving for SynerComm?
Absolutely. Well, yes, we do use it internally as well. That's probably one of the things we do here is we kind of sip our own Kool-Aid and wanted to make sure that it worked as advertised. And we survived a couple recent outages that customers hadn't. Not only is there the continuity piece, but it also improved greatly on our spam and phishing and all the other things, as well as added some training, which was great for the users to internally to be questioned periodically. Do you think that's a valid email? So it helps us with our training and security awareness. But as far as our reliability and our uptime, hands down, was straightforward. Email is one of the easiest things to actually migrate or add or bolt on something to. And so the installation was seamless and we've been very happy with it.
From an alternative standpoint, what do you see on the market as an alternative? And I guess what makes Mimecast stand out above the rest?
Well, there's really not an alternative that I've seen for the resiliency and the uptime for the Office 365 and the backup piece. There are other mail gateways out there today and that customers can use, but that's just a small portion. And it certainly doesn't address this uptime scenario that we're realizing.
Okay. And Peter, just for your perspective, obviously being a technology consultant to Mimecast, what are the areas where you see that from the end user standpoint, where you see there's a huge advantage?
Well, so the thing is the end user, they don't do well when there's an outage. When they can't get their work done, and the admin doesn't do well either. They're getting calls from the users. The challenge here is, of course, can you put something in place that makes it so that they're not even aware? And that's the value here of what Mimecast offers, is that they created an MTA years ago when they invented the solution, so that basically when there is an outage, there's a heartbeat between the customer and Microsoft. When that outage occurs, the admins get a panic button alert, an SMS text or an alternate email message that basically gives them this panic button that they can push, switch tracks, and ultimately mail will continue to send and receive as if nothing had happened. So for the end user never sees, hopefully, that there was an outage. If they're working in Outlook with the Mimecast plugin, if they're using the Mimecast mobile app or web portal, ultimately they never see that there was an outage. So I think that's key to make it so that the end user never feels like they have to switch to another solution.
Interesting. So let's take a step in a different direction. A lot of security is being purchased a lot of times on fear, right? And there's a lot of truth behind that, or that fear wouldn't exist. But I saw that there was a warning from the Department of Homeland Security recently. What advice do you give listeners on the whole kind of what's happening in the market right now? And I guess when you think about what's happening in the news right now, what advice could you give a listener?
Well, from my perspective, I'm not one to talk about technology from that FUD perspective, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. The idea is not to scare people into protecting themselves. And yet there has to be a healthy fear. Wouldn't you agree? We obviously have concerns that need to be mitigated, because the last thing we want is to have some piece of ransomware or some type of spear phishing attack get through and then affect our organization. We've already had enough disruptor, things happen this year. We don't need more. So how do you fix that? For me, I like to encourage folks, first of all, if you do move to Office 365 or M365 if you've done that in the short term, go back and recheck to make sure of a few things. The Department of Homeland Security encourages these things. First of all, make sure that you have multi-factor authentication turned on if you can. Look at the policy for that. Also, make sure that you have what's called least privileged access. In other words, don't give everyone in the company global admin rights. It gets very easy to do that when you're frustrated, you don't know how something works, and you give away the global admin rights and now it all works. Don't do that. Make sure people only have the roles that they need for their job. Make sure, especially from email, that you turn off legacy basic authentication protocols. That's been deprecated and done away with. So make sure that you're not utilizing protocols that are not going to benefit you or are legacy and could be security risks. So there's a couple of things I recommend, things that are built in to M365. This won't cost you a dime. That's first. Second, I recommend that you look at things like SPF, DKIM, and DMARC, because a lot of folks are not implementing this. I just did a massive implementation over the summer, and you'd be amazed to see how doing that will help when it comes to brand exploitation, as well as domain spoofing of your domain. Because the last thing you want is for your company name to get pulled through the mud because you were used in some type of domain spoofing attack. So SPF is not hard to implement. DKIM, Microsoft gives you the command line in Exchange Management Shell for you to use. It's copy and paste. It's easy to implement. The DMARC side is easy to implement, but you need an analyzer, right? Microsoft doesn't have an analyzer. You have to get that from a third party. Mimecast does. So by analyzing things, you can see the triangulation of SPF and DKIM, and you can see how you're doing in that regard. So that's second. And then third, I recommend that they look at a third-party bolt-on solution for security, something that's going to ensure that you have the latest and greatest, the most innovative security on the front end. To ensure that you're not just dealing with opportunistic attacks, but targeted attacks, things that are truly coming your way on purpose. So those are my three recommendations.
Lisa, what about you?
Boy, I couldn't agree anymore. Peter, well said. Spot on as far as the recommendations. We sometimes add for a customer item. A lot of times we work with a customer, we encourage them to be using some type of security framework, some type of best practice. At a basic level, the CIS, Center for Internet Security, the CIS.org website has a guide for hardening Azure and O365, M365, etc. And we recommend that a customer go through that, vet out all of your configurations against a best known working best practice guideline, just to take it that one step, again, with that least privilege, multi-factor auth, all those things that we consider foundational that could possibly be overlooked by an administrator that may not be very well versed in email or any type of cloud setup. That's a very good guide that helps.
Okay. So are you guys seeing any trends out there right now in this space that we should highlight, specifically, obviously, with the pandemic and where we are from a workforce side of things? Is there anything that stands out?
From our perspective, boy, this whole remote workforce has been an eye-opener for a lot of customers. Initially, a lot of customers had remote SSL VPN for maybe a snow day. For those of us up here in Wisconsin, we know what that is, but never did anybody dream to this extent. And there was machines, personal computers, everything brought online from home just to get people functional. And now you're trying to reel that back in with policies, using things like mail gateways to find out, firewall rules to block things like IMAP or POP3, those old protocols that really shouldn't be around anymore. So we're trying to rein back in this environment, and having something with the visibility, a deep visibility into the email traffic, the gateway, like Mimecast, identifies things that you can further secure and tune with policy. It's very good at guiding and improving your maturity as far as that security is concerned.
What about you, Peter?
From my perspective, and I agree 100%, obviously it was a big shift for organizations to now move to from a let's say snow day situation or even road warrior situation where people are connecting because they're away temporarily, as opposed to this being a more permanent lifestyle. And so I think what I've been seeing is the need for end users to get more training in this regard. For those of us who are road warriors that do travel quite a bit, we tend to be a little bit more hyper vigilant with regard to our own security. I know for myself, I don't just connect to the Starbucks or conference Wi-Fi. I don't leave my devices out and about, in the hotel rooms, things like that. You tend to have a bit of a, maybe it's a bit more paranoid mindset because you're more concerned that when you're out, you're going to have this problem. The problem here is that, that means that most people, when they work in an office, they tend to relax a little bit. They know they have IT right there that's going to help them if there's a problem. They know that there's all of this, hardware in place to protect them and all this security and such. But now they're home. So here's the thing: you're you're really like a road warrior. You don't have all of that support, but you're at home, which makes you feel very comfortable and relaxed. The two don't go together. We need to encourage folks to be hyper vigilant as if they're on the road, as if the bad guys are around every corner, with every email, with every type of possible attack. Make sure their Wi-Fi is protected. Some of these folks they've just never had to deal with this before. So more training, more encouragement for them to be vigilant, so that they treat it as if they're on the road, even when they're in their pajamas.
Okay, appreciate Pete. So Peter, I just want to wrap this up, but before I do, let's talk a little bit about your clip training business. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. So as I mentioned, it's a Windows Office 365 portal solution. And it also includes the ability for folks to create their own content and add it in. That's what makes it unique. So we typically sell to partners who sell to customers, and ultimately it gives them the ability to have the content that we've developed in-house, but also to add additional content in that they may have developed in-house or are working on. And so unlike other platforms where you just get what you get, in this case, it gives you a chance to also use it specifically for your environment. And so we focus on the Microsoft world, especially things like Teams. And we have our app, which is in Teams. So you can access it through a browser or right from within Teams, so that ultimately your people can keep working even while they're using Microsoft's communication and collaboration suite. And that allows them to be able to take it really wherever they go. So it's an amazing solution, in my opinion. It's something I'm very passionate about learning. And it gives the end user the ability to choose their own adventure. It's designed in such a way that it's colorful, it's engaging. And that's the key with training these days. It's very easy to get the end users to get bored with death by PowerPoint, to get bored with the training style. Sometimes it's too mechanical. It's almost too perfect. Whereas we have real people creating our content, and basically they're subject matter experts, Microsoft MVPs and others that do their best to ensure that the content is engaging for the end users. And then the platform itself is also engaging and easy to use.
So so you have content that you're producing and putting on the training content, and a service provider or a company like a SynerComm can produce content and put it on there also. Did I hear that correctly?
Yep, that's correct. They can do it either for themselves, for their own company, or in some cases, they may have customers that they'd like to share that content with, so they can put it into their portal and then share that content with others who are in the portals that they've set up. So it makes it easy for them to distribute content and make sure. So for example, if you're an MSP, you might have a variety of customers that you care for. And let's say you're worried about security. And so you create a video, or you have a video that you'd like to share with everyone. Well, you can put it into the system and you can share it with all 25, 50, 100 of your customers. You can even create a learning path so that it ensures that they have it when they log in. You can feature it so that when they log in, it's right there in front of them. You can do a lot of things to mandate training or just incentivize folks to watch the training. And that's valuable because oftentimes people can get lost when they get into their own learning management system. There's just too much in front of them. We make it so that it's nice and easy for you to put in front of people what you feel they need now.
Very cool. Well, the old saying, people, process, and technology from the 90s, the people part is pretty important. So we got to make sure that they know what they're doing. I appreciate Lisa. Peter, I appreciate your time today. This was a recording for IT Trendsetters by SynerComm. Please take a look at our next episode, which is going to be coming out in a week from the date that this is released. Have a great day.